Hi, welcome. Here we are with Climate Social Forum together with Stefania. Hi, Stefania.
Hi, Domenico. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So it's a pleasure to have you here. And today we are on the track related to the economical part of the crisis, we can say. And particularly, we are dealing with the climate finance, ethical finance, fiscal measure, and carbon pricing. And so economy plays a great role in the change. And in fact, Europe is acting several measures and plans to foster resources in order to make a Green New Deal. But Stefania, would you like to tell a little bit more about that?
Thank you so much, Domenico. Absolutely. First of all, I would like to thank the Climate Social Forum. You're doing a great job, and it's so important that all these stakeholders and activists are put together. And thanks to you, we're just having today the channel to be discussing really major issues. As far as the Green New Deal is concerned, definitely nowadays it's a kind of buzzword. I mean, everybody is talking about the Green New Deal. It's been like used as a mantra by the political forces to be kind of putting up, campaigns. But the first thing we should be saying is that not all climate plans can be called Green New Deals. Green New Deals are those who just focus on social justice, on workers' rights, on communities. We know that the European Union has been doing lots of, it's just undertaking, a lot of programs for the Green Deal. But we have to be pointing out that the European Commission Green Deal is not called new, it's called Green Deal. And this, we have had a very interesting debate on the Green New Deal on the last October, 9 October, with Yanis Varoufakis. The title was really Green New Deal Key Messages and Highlights. And somehow he was explaining it very clearly. It was just saying that the deal of the European Commission is not called new because, in fact, it doesn't bring in innovative elements, and that somehow there are like 3 trillion euros in the banks, which are like stagnating, which are like unused, and that creates a lot of social restlessness and somehow also phenomena like xenophobia. So the action plan that is proposed by the Green New Deal for Europe campaign, which has been initiated by DiEM25, is just that somehow the European investment banks, they just issue annual bonds with the support of the European Central Bank to create a green European Union. Also, the national recovery funds are not enough if they're just kept, in this frame. I mean, there is the risk that they would exacerbate somehow the austerity. Now, it's very interesting that the president of the European Commission last September, she was just delivering, Ursula von der Leyen, she was delivering a very interesting speech to the State of the Union, and she just announced the new EU initiatives with an emphasis to the healthcare system, to green investments. Somehow the 37% of the recovery fund will be allocated, and also to digital investments. But and all throughout her speech, there have been recurring words that have come out from her, which was like fragility, uncertainty, and trust. But I just I didn't really find out what was new, because somehow the Commission as should have been put a clear end to all those practices that would fuel fossil fuel infrastructures. And also, and here I also have to bring up the topic of the agricultural common policies. I mean, somehow the European Parliament has announced that 60% of national budgets will support large companies for promoting intensive agriculture, whereas only 6% would go to small and medium farms. And this is a absolutely not up to the Green New Deal targets somehow. So when we talk about Green New Deal, we have to be sure that we really aim to decarbonizing the economy. How can we do that? The Green New Deal campaign promoted by DIEM25 somehow focuses on three major segments. The first one is financing, the second one is legislation, and the third one is an environmental justice commission. So when we talk about financing, and that's, I go back to your question. So the green public works, this is how we call them, somehow they just leverage on public financing. So somehow encouraging that public banks would deploy climate funds, and that the green transition requires investments that not only produce profits, but also social returns. So there should be somehow an overhaul of the financial system, curbing the incentives that cause environmental damage, demanding financial compensation for those who are responsible. It should be offered trainings for those working in industries towards sustainable transition. It should support rural communities in the transition to sustainable models, cutting subsidies to those who damage the environment. It would be also important to be kind of giving awards to those businesses who distinguish themselves for achieving Europe's high standards of sustainability. It should be put into place a kind of mobility cohesion fund that would ensure that each community has access to an integrated transport system. It would be also important that workers somehow are put on the boards that can have a voting share, reinvesting a percentage of annual profits in community projects. And this is pretty the financial parts. But when we talk about the financial parts, we also have to be looking at the legislation. And here we go to the second segment of the transformation, which is the environmental union. What does it mean? It means that somehow the European legislation has to be really aligning with science, and therefore we have to have more stringent and binding targets. The internal energy market should be rejected, or on the contrary, we should have a municipalization of energy infrastructures, fossil fuels phased out, a new system of fees and dividends should be adopted, and somehow ensuring that those who are responsible are taxed, and that the revenues of that taxation is distributed to the European citizens. Another major point when we talk about economy, we should be coming up with an economy which is based on solidarity and not competition. And here we get to the third segment of the green transition, which is the European the environmental Justice Commission, because we have to be looking at the process from 3 points, from 3 standpoints, which is like intersectional, international, and intergenerational. And when we talk about international, we know that somehow the poorer countries are those who are paying the most, and are the least responsible for climate change. So we have to be looking at migratory phenomena. We have to be looking at multinational companies. The intersectional segment is so important because somehow there are lots of people who are marginalized socially, economically, culturally, politically. And then let's not forget the intergenerational segments, because somehow we have to be confronting with the colonial crimes of the past and looking at the next generation, like paving the way for the next generation. So somehow, when we talk about the Green New Deal, we have to be really coming up with a transition that cares for people. The current deal has to be restructured. A new social contract is needed. A new social contract that will be rooted in ethical and political commitment to social, kind of redressing social, racial, and gender injustice. So that transforming the carbon centers of our economy, energy, agriculture, transport, the way how we run cities, also has to be responding with climate change solutions that are tied up to experiences, to fears, to the needs of the affected communities. We have to be really starting up with, we should be having a kind of reflective conversation, like learning from the strength of new approaches and imagining things that have not been done yet. So it's about rethinking relationship to land, to labor, to our collective imaginaries, and really, it comes up to me that the famous sentence by Jane Goodall, it really resonates so strongly. She just brought it up, like how is it possible that the most intellectual creature on earth is destroying is only home? So it's really, we need not only hopes for the future, because as you know, Domenico, we have been so much into the international processes, right, all throughout. I mean, let's think about the Conference of the Parties. I mean, I feel disappointed. I myself feel disappointed by them. 25 years of negotiations. Where did we get? I mean, what did we get? None of the important objectives has been achieved somehow. That if we just the Paris Agreement has been very much applauded, but we know, I mean, just reading the papers, the future we want is not the future we want. I mean, it's not a real blueprint with binding targets. It's just a hope for the future. There is no must. There is can. And also the last conference of the parties in Madrid, I mean, it failed to be coming up with global carbon markets. And now, I mean, we know that the next baton somehow is passed on to the next conference of the parties in Glasgow, and it's very important that the Article 0.6 for national targets, but there is no time. I mean, really, we have to be passing from words to you know, to an efficient, sound antivirus, and somehow the Green New Deal is an antivirus.
Thank you, Stefania. You touch also several points, and this is something that also we are treating during the forum, also in relationship with like the missing negotiation. But I think that one point you mentioned that is also important for the next tracks of the Climate Social Forum, that is intergenerationality. And how do you think that, for example, European Union can foster the Green Deal also for the next generation? And how do you think, another point that we are treating is stop the subsidies to fossil fuels and so on. How do you think it's possible to stop this chain?
Well, I really love the subject of the intergenerational, because I mean, we really have to look at the humankind and the human history all throughout. If we understand the story, you know, if we understand the history, then we will be able to be redressing the current responsibilities. There has been an interesting an historical writer, I can't recall his name right now, but he said it quite clearly. Like, it wasn't Europe that built the colonies, but the colonies built Europe. So there is a huge responsibility from our side. We have to be confronting with that. We have to be redressing the responsibilities, you know, the faults somehow of the past. Only acknowledging the past, we can really leave the present differently. And the European Union has a huge potential into that. They are working hard, and it's, I mean, I just when I point out what is still missing is not to be criticizing. On the contrary, I'm fully aware of how difficult it is, because we think that, okay, we do it. It's not so easy, because we have to be dealing with the complexity of the system. We have created a very complex and articulated complex, and human beings are very complex themselves. So I think that that somehow the European Union has a great responsibility. We really have to be strengthening our ties together. It has to be coming up with pulling together all the efforts that a lot of stakeholders all throughout have been doing, like businesses and civil society and politicians also themselves. They really have to be prompting them to be having real solutions for the next generation. And as you were saying, fossil fuels phasing out measure is the first. We cannot continue to hide it. That's the first major step that we have to be undertaking, because then it's like it's done. I mean, we really focus on one of the major causes of the environmental damage, so it has to be done. And that's why we need the Green New Deal. I mean, the green transition, because it has to be kind of accompanied by measures that don't damage, you know, all those people who work in the traditional industries. So it's a lot of work to be done. And it, as you were saying, I mean, the motto of the Climate Social Forum is we cannot do it alone, but together we can achieve it. So I think that this togetherness is somehow the key for the change.
Thank you, Stefania, also for reminding the very key points of the Climate Social Forum. And one last question I want to give to you is on Article 6. Article 6 is a great point of the Paris Agreement, one of maybe of the cores, and but is not still fully implemented. And the rationale behind is that there is an involvement of the private sector, but also of the whole society inside diminishing the emission and so on. What do you think about that? And do you think that, for example, market in a way can play a positive role for reducing carbon or whatever?
That's interesting. It's a very interesting question. I used to work, you might know that. I mean, right now I'm the coordinator for the Green New Deal for Europe campaign in Italy. But I have worked for a long time for the Italian Ministry of the Environment, seconded to international organizations abroad. And one of the major projects that I've carried out was the Green Growth platform for CEOs. I do believe that businesses play a major role. They know the best, they're competent, and they somehow know how to have the ball, making, I mean, just making it work. They are fully aware that somehow there has to be a shift in the carbon system, in the way how things are still somehow traditionally put up. And I do believe that coming up with a coalition of businesses is one of the key points for that transition. As you were saying, the Article 6 is crucial, but we really have to make it work. I mean, we really have to be setting binding targets for reducing emissions. We cannot keep on talking about the future. I mean, Kyoto Protocol failed because somehow developed countries should have been, taking up the major responsibilities, and the developing countries wanted to be coming up to the market and producing and consuming. So one of the major points that has to be touched on is that we really have to, when talking about the binding targets, we have to be talking about changing the culture, because somehow religion, the economy has become a religion. The production and consumption patterns are just over our, possibilities. We know that we have to be coming to terms with the natural, with the ecosystem, the footprint, and therefore it means that we really have to be changing societal and cultural patterns. So we talk about Article 6, we talk about businesses, we talk about policies, but we also have to be talking about a cultural change, and that can happen, again, with a common mindset on what really cares. And this is why I'm saying that I like the Green New Deal, because it's the economy. It's just prompting a kind of the economy for caring. So we should be kind of revamping some human values and caring for people. So the social segment of the transition is really major.
Thank you very much, Stefania. Now we are going to close. One last message and thoughts that you want to send to the participant of the Climate Social Forum.
I was very young when I came into the environmental international processes. I was lucky enough to see it, 15, 20 years ago, when environmentalists were looked up as if we were like aliens with green ears. We were like weirdo to the major. When I said that I would work in the environmental field, people would look at me like, really, what are you doing? Are you like a vegan or something? And now everybody, in fact, is talking about green and environmental and sustainable change. Now, we really have to take care about. I mean, we really have to pay attention to the fact that we shouldn't slide into the greenwashing. We really need to be realizing that it's today. It's not tomorrow. It's today. We have to be starting up. This change that somehow is coming from each of us, but together we have to be starting it from today, together, as you were saying.
Thank you very much, Stefania, and thank you for these beautiful messages and for your time. So let's close the session and keep updated on the next session of Climate Social Forum. Bye, Stefania. Bye, all.